Let's dive in, people. It's time for the game review. The game we are reviewing today, as if you do not know, is On Mars. On Mars is a 2019 release. The designer is Vital Lacerda. The artist is...
Vital, you mean. That's how I say it.
No, but you say Vital instead of Vital.
Oh my God. You just said the same thing twice. Vital Lacerda. That's how it's said. Vital Lacerda.
And so let that name ring like a bell in your ears.
You just said Vital instead of Vital.
Oh, let's keep on target, guys. We only have 2 hours for this podcast.
Matt, who is the artist for this?
Ian O'Toole, obviously.
Ian O'Toole.
There's only one artist that works in the board game industry.
He may be having a Babe Ruth year. He may be having
he's had a Babe Ruth decade, I think,
for sure. But this year, you look at Age of Steam, you look at this, you look at he's just crushing. He's just knocking everything out of the park. The length of this game is, that's a very good question. The Teach last time was around the same length as the movie Sharknado.
Mm-hmm. The Teach is an hour, 45 minutes to an hour for people who've never played before.
You went over that.
Really?
You went hour and 15 for the Teach.
Okay. There's probably a bit of chatting in that though, as we were waiting for
I'm
you
sure.
and stuff,
I'm sure.
It's 45 minutes to an hour.
And the short game that we played, we clocked in at 2.5 hours, really.
2 to 3 hours, yeah.
Yeah, 2 to 3 hours, which wasn't too bad.
I'd say once people know how to play the game, you could do the long game in that amount of time too. I think 3 hours is fine for the long game.
I don't know if that's true.
Really?
But, well, I would say this. I would say that what took the time was the decision space of figuring out what to do. I think the more you know the game, I don't think that decision space gets faster. I think if anything, you may be factoring in more things. I don't think it gets longer either. I think it probably stays somewhere in that zone.
Well, the length of the game, much like Terraforming Mars, the players are sort of deciding the length of the game too, because it's depending on what they're really pushing forward and how quickly they want to end it.
Yeah, and the current weight of the game is 4.46. All right, we got 3 pros here. Who wants to do the Alfred? Why don't you start? Tell us what On Mars is about, just in the abstract.
On Mars is a Terraforming Mars game. It is now almost a enshrined segment of the board game industry, taking the red planet and then like populating it with life. This game is very unique though in the sense that it has dual states, dual phases. Mm-hmm. You'll have one that is off planet, one that is on planet. Mm-hmm. You will be doing unique actions in both, and much like all Lacerda games, it is interlocking combos aplenty, and the board state, although evident on a look, is trickier than nobody else's business. Even though it isn't your typical kind of worker placement, nothing ever gets totally clogged up. You're able to kind of be everywhere at all times. You will still be deficient of the things you want to do at any given moment. You will be on the wrong side of the board at all given times. You won't be able to do everything, and yet at the same time, the person next to you seems to be at least in the case when I was playing with Paul, he was everywhere at all times. It was all happening, and I felt always like 2 or 3 steps outside, which is great. It's how you want it to be.
There is a curve, and if you're not on that bus, that could be a long haul.
It's beautiful.
In comparison to Terraforming Mars, what would you say the story of this game? How does the story of this game differ from Terraforming Mars?
Well, Terraforming Mars is just such a radically different game, but I will say the stories aren't that different. You are terraforming the space, even though this is much more about a cooperative building strategy rather than an antagonistic kind of corporate idea. Terraforming Mars really does a good job of being a game of kind of corporate overlordship and kind of a dystopian future. And this game has a lot more of a posy, like you're working with the robots to kind of help assist each other. And like, I just think there's a different kind of facing to this game that has a little bit more positivity.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think Terraforming Mars is a little bit more futurist too, because that is attempting to make an entire planet habitable for humans. Whereas this is just trying to get some buildings down and grow some plants and not die.
Yeah,
it's the Martian. It's the Martian.
I would say that the entire game of On Mars takes place in 1/3 of the first round of
2 card plays.
Right, exactly, or one. Yeah, 1 card play per person, and that is the entirety of On Mars. This is, I would say that
survival shelters.
It's 100% less oceans. Let's say that.
Yeah,
very much so. Exactly.
Or you're not making any air either.
You are
not inside.
We are not terraforming. We are simply trying to survive on the planet. This game is set in, what year is it set in? 2048 or something like that? I think it may have said something like that.
2037.
2037.
Hey.
Which Elon Musk has said.
Think you'll make it to 2037, Tom?
No.
Let's defy with the weight loss challenge. Let's defy all those kind of notions.
I think with the weight loss challenge we could do that. I'm doing very well right now with that.
Oh my gosh, I loved listening to you guys talk about your you want to hear my? I'm trying a very.
I want to hear.
Here's my experimental thing. I'm going to try in terms of losing weight.
You're just going to eat less and.
No, I'm gonna do this. You guys were talking about all these crazy pills you're going to take and these different fasting things. I'm going to do something that's never worked for anybody ever, which is I'm going to eat less and exercise more.
That's what I just said. That's what I just said.
I have no idea if it's going to work.
That was a snarky guy on Discord, by the way, who said nobody's ever been more LA than when you start talking about all these weird things. The pills I was talking about, I have to take because I'm on antibiotics, and the antibiotics stop me from being able to lose weight.
That also is a great LA thing to say, though, too. I will just throw it out there. It's having been in Boston now for even a short period of time. I'm already getting the Boston download.
Well, I'm actually.
You've been
cussing
real
up like a sailor.
I'm wearing
a
real
horn I don't even have. Yeah.
Well, Tom, are you wearing your Onyx weight loss crystal right now? Because I have 4 different crystals attuned to 3 different sounds strapped all around my stomach right now.
I have found that jade works for me. I'm an autumn, but I'm an autumn.
Yeah.
So you have to understand. And
My blood type is
and
maybe AB, and so I'm most responsive to Onyx.
Yeah.
Yeah. And dangling from the perineum for me is where it is.
Do we have to bleep that?
I don't think we do. I think technically that's okay. That's going to stay.
Good to know.
It's on the edge.
Yeah.
It's definitely on the edge. Okay, so what Alfred was alluding to is that this game has sort of 2 halves to it. There are 4 actions or so that take place in orbit. And there are 4 actions or so, maybe 5 actions that take place.
There's 5 on each side.
5 on each side. 5 that take place on the
planet.
planet.
A game with 10 spaces to go to.
It's simple. The only
Vito
problem
loves to make his game sound very simple. Like in Lisboa, he famously said, "It's a simple game. All you do is play a card and do what it says on the card."
Yeah. What you're doing, though, is you're choosing a side. You're going to be in space, or you're going to be down on the planet's surface.
Right.
And the only way to change position is to take the shuttle action, which at the end of every round, after you've taken your actions, the shuttle is going to move. It's either
shuttle
going to
phase,
move. The shuttle phase, is going to move from Mars to orbit, or from orbit to Mars. As the game goes on, there will be more turns before that shuttle actually moves.
It won't need to go back and forth as often.
So what you want to do to some degree in those early games is plan for that. You want to figure out how much can I do in this space so that I don't have to come up to this space so often.
Yeah.
In the early game, traveling makes a lot of sense because there's a lot of things. The things that happen in space are just kind of preparing you.
Yeah, thematically, it's in space. You are researching and you are putting together your blueprints. You're planning.
You're getting your resources necessary for the work that you need to do on the planet.
You're growing the plants you need. You're growing the resources you need. You're putting your blueprints together for the plan you're going to build. You're researching technologies. And then you go down on the planet and you enact those things.
Exactly. And then when you're on the planet, you are building structures. You're improving the structures that you have built. You're building complexes of structures. You're building ships that are going to be able to travel up and down and back and forth and expand basically bring new colonists and new people to the planet. You're going to be able to move your rover or your bots around. The difference between rover and bot: a rover is an explorer, and a bot is a construction robot, essentially. Right. It's what you use to build things.
One hoovers up all the stuff you want, and the other one builds the stuff you need.
Exactly right.
I found that I didn't travel as much as I thought I would in this game. I found that, and maybe this was just my style of play, but I found that there are ways to never really have to go back to the orbital station after a certain amount of time in the game. In both games I played, I started the game heavy in the orbital station, getting all the stuff I need, and then by the halfway point, I don't think I ever went back to the orbital station. I think I had actions and executive actions and things I could do that gave me whatever I needed at the orbital station, which is cool, which is thematically cool. At a certain point, on Mars becomes habitable. If you have what you need.
If you do the right things. Like
Correct.
You pick technologies on the space station.
Yeah.
You picked technologies I'm talking about. and blueprints
Yeah.
that allowed you to do space actions while you were down on the surface. Which
So
is
can we talk
great-
about this is Lacerda? This is the thing. There is a combo-ness that happens that unfolds at a certain point. You have built kind of an engine of a certain kind where you have actions and your executive actions that you mentioned. These executive actions become the game, I really feel like, at a certain point. They become the space to which you will have advantaged yourself to have an individual track rather than just be playing what everyone else is cooperatively doing.
Right.
You mentioned executive action, so let's just talk about that really quick. You have one main action each round, and you have the ability sometimes to take an executive action.
You always have the option. It's just
if you have the resources necessary to spend, or you have the ability to do so.
Which is nice because it does make the game not super complicated in terms of your turn. You can do one thing, and then if you can do one more thing.
Yeah, but it gets really complicated because
yeah.
the action spaces alone are this one, you have to put a person on it. This one, you don't have to put a person on it. This one, you have to put a person on it, and you can spend other people to amp up that action. This one, you don't put any people on it, but you can spend extra people to up the action.
The iconography, thanks to Ian O'Toole, is very clear, though. Once you can read the iconography.
Once you get it, it is clear. But all these things are designed with a reason. They're designed with intent. They're designed with a lot of playtesting going into it, so it all makes sense. But it is the edge case thing that you said earlier, I think holds true in this sense that each space is a special snowflake. No two are quite exactly alike.
Totally. And to me, the hallmark of a VTOL game is I am the seal performing and always getting a treat whenever I do anything. And to me, every VTOL game has that feeling of no matter what I do, if I put my worker here, I get a resource, and then I can use that resource to do this. And then if you do anything, if you just move your guy forward one space, you always land on a new action. Or
do you feel like you're saying like thank you, Dr. Pavlov? Do you think that there's like a little bell
Yes.
going off each time?
I think he recognizes that players really enjoy the feeling of getting a present every time you do anything, getting a little, and that's a very positive gaming experience. It makes you feel like every time I do something, I get something for free. I get a little bonus. I get a little extra.
Can I offer here, as we talked about 4X games earlier, so I find this ticks a box. All Lacerda games tick a box for me that the traditional 4X games give, where there's always something kind of to be discovered.
Yes.
And that the actions really do unfold tactically as well as strategically. His games really do that so well, and this game is amazing for that. I really felt like there was always something new and something I should have discovered earlier in the game that would have given me a whole different state of being, and so
there's a lot of ways to do the things that you want to do in the game, which is a very interesting thing. So Matt was describing the way he played, which was the first few actions in the space station, getting all your ducks in a row, go down to the planet and try to stay there. In the game that Matt and I played together, he and Paul went to space, and were doing that. And I was the last player to go, and I realized, okay, if I go to space, it's all three of us there. They've already taken the best bonuses for space, so I'm going to be at a disadvantage going forward for the rest of that round.
But it was even worse though, because by the time you did get there, everything was it was like an empty town. We had taken everything. We'd taken all the resources, literally all the blueprints. There was almost nothing for you to do there other than research.
I won that game because what I did was I went to Mars first, and what I did was I picked the action, the little bonus you get is I start with a blueprint. That's the little treat that I got for that.
Yeah.
And with that blueprint and with the technologies that you guys were grabbing up in space, I can build using your technology. We can work together, and by doing so, you get a little benefit from that. Yeah. You get to increase that technology, to improve that technology.
Let's talk briefly about what I call the coopetitive aspect of this game, which is where we are all you are rewarded for playing nicely with each other in a way that I haven't seen in other games that are as highly competitive as this as well. What the two areas that is seen clearly in is the technology. So much thematically, it makes perfect sense. We all live in a colony together. If you have improved a technology, I get to use it, and you only get something for it. I don't lose anything, right? You have taken the time to research how to build hydroponic labs. Now, when I want to build a hydroponic lab, I just go to you. But, by going to you, your research is furthered. You get better at building hydroponic labs. So, I don't lose anything by it. You just gain something, which is really fun because, you still have that thing of like, oh, I need to use Tom's tech to build this building. I don't have to pay him for it, but he's going to get something from it. And so you have to decide how, and usually you almost always do it because you have to.
The majority of games that have this mechanic, it's I can use your thing, but I have to pay you $1 or $1 gold or one this or one that. In this one, the game pays the other person.
Pays the bank pays the player. Right.
So it is no skin off of your nose to do it, to get that benefit.
You always do it, and it's that thing. It's that you're getting the seal's getting a fish. Like you're like, oh, I get to use your thing. Nothing bad happens. You get a thing, but you're feeling good. Everybody feels good.
You're giving them VP. Inevitably.
Sure. Yes, inevitably, because the tech tree rewards victory points.
It seems those VP drips are so small compared to the benefit you get from doing the action.
And it feels that way. But then looking at end game scoring, wow, you could play a tech strategy and get crazy
50, 60 points could be sitting there. Yeah. The other cooperative aspect of the game is the life support system. Yeah. So the level of our colony only rises when we have a balanced building structure. So you have to build all the 4 main types of buildings. There
are 6 main types of buildings all total, 4 of which are necessary for the LSS, the life support systems.
Right.
So there is the battery, there is the air, there is the greenhouse, and there's the water systems.
So if all those things get upgraded, the level of the colony goes up, which then that extends the amount of time in between shuttle transfers. That also literally can move the end game clock forward. If it gets high enough, the level can actually start lowering it can end the game.
It also is the condition to which new cards and new technologies come
exactly.
out.
So the only
evolves
way.
The game, yeah.
So there is no end of round in this game. The end of the round is when we all have worked together to take the LSS to the total next level. And now the whole game refills. So it's not like I do my action, you do action, we all do our actions, and then refill the board. That might not happen. That actually, I found the LSS doesn't go up until a third of the way through the game. So like there are many actions where you're just going, oh man, I need blueprints, I need resources, they don't exist, and then that is the incentive to raise the level of but also you get a huge amount of victory points for doing it. You get no benefits for building buildings that aren't required by the LSS, which is really interesting. So like you cannot just decide I'm going to build plant buildings for the whole game. Because the first time you build a plant building, you'll get 2 points for this. You'll get 8 points because it does this. You'll get a free guy. You get all these gifts. But then now the plant is above the level of the LSS. If you build it again, you literally get nothing.
Because that's not what we need right now. We need something else. That's what we're going to reward. We're going to reward the things that we need to improve our station, not you simply min-maxing your own little system.
Well, it's a nice way of pushing the brakes because the strategy for someone who's rushing the game is to push all the life support, but they really have to have their finger in so many different pies, so to speak, that they would be able to do that. Now, we saw that in the second game where Paul was rushing
he went for the low hanging fruit and the early victory points. He went I'm gonna build all the things quickly. I'm not gonna worry about upping tech. I'm gonna let them do the technology. Mm-hmm. I'm gonna let them get the scientists. I'm gonna let them do all the stuff, and I'm just gonna get all the quick early points, and it's gonna be an insurmountable lead by the time they start doing it as well.
Which almost felt that way,
and it seemed at one point in the game he had this giant lead points and we had nothing, and then I just decided to focus on contracts and actually using the things he had built to turn into points, because he had built all these things, and I was just able to. It was easy to zig where he had zagged, which was interesting.
You did a great job because it really felt like round 2 or whatever, like life support level 2. It was like, oh, this game's over. I was ready to throw in the towel. I didn't understand it, and then you came along and you won. It was beautiful.
Yeah, it was fun. I mean, it's also a learning game. I don't take too much joy in a second play of a very complex game at victory, because we're all just pulling the levers and seeing what works. But I did see that lead and went, ugh, is this one of those games where everybody has to just rush the thing? And I was like, I really hope it's not that game, because I don't want to all have to rush the same thing in order to win the game. And so it was reassuring to see that there were you could get a lot of points focusing on contracts.
An interesting thing about the game is the interconnectedness of these things. There are literally gears that are built into the mechanisms of the game, which is to say that in order to build a greenhouse, what resource do you spend to build a greenhouse?
You need water.
That's correct.
Right.
You don't spend plants to build the greenhouse.
No.
You spend water to get the plant building, and then what scientist goes with that needs something else in
Circle of life.
In other words, you need the resource of the building to the left of the building that you want to build in order to make it. You need and it pays off things that are going to feed the building on the right.
Yeah,
and
it all goes in a big loop, and oxygen makes people, which then can work in mines, which then
water makes
batteries.
Right, water makes plants. Plants make oxygen.
We've all played
Oxygen,
Pokemon.
Oxygen makes people able to sustain
people. Can work in mines. Mines are used to make batteries. Batteries, it's this cool cycle for sure.
Yeah, batteries bring water up to the surface, and blah 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 blah. It's kind of fascinating, but it is one of those things where there are scientists which you get. The scientists you can use to go onto blueprints, your own blueprints or other people's blueprints.
Yeah, you're right. That is a third co-opetitive element that I forgot to talk about, which is really fun. I've never seen before.
Please talk about it, because it's really fascinating.
The scientists might be my favorite part of the game. So there are 6 special meeples in this game that are not your workers. They're their own. There's only 6 of them the whole game. Once they're gone, they're all gone.
One representing each building type.
Right, exactly. So you buy that scientist. And then you can place that scientist on a matching type. If it's plant, it must be on a plant advanced building card or a blueprint card. Each blueprint card, once built into a building, has an executive action on it that is unique to that. All the cards are pretty different. But usually to use an executive action costs you 2 crystals. But if you have a scientist matching that type, it's free. But your scientist can go on anybody's blueprint card at the table, not just yours, as long as it matches the type. But the cool part is if I put mine on Tom's card, I get to use it for free as an executive action every turn, but so does Tom. Tom gets to use it for free every turn. So you're thinking...
Once again, no penalty
for me.
For Matt for putting it there.
Right.
Just an extra benefit for me.
I really am starting to think that Vital has studied Pavlov, because there's just all these constant little positive feelings as opposed to punishing feelings, as opposed to negative gameplay experiences. Everything you do leads to a small little jolt of, ooh, yeah, I get a thing. And nothing bad has happened.
So do you think, because this is something that's interesting, we've had some debates about the multiplayer solitaire trend of the year, which we'll get into in a minute. But some people like that because they don't like the fact that games that are not multiplayer solitaire, the Agricolas of the world, I take the 4 wood. You can no longer take the 4 wood.
Just a bad feeling.
And it's a bad feeling. This is not multiplayer solitaire. There is a huge level of interaction, but the interaction is such that it is net positive and never net negative.
Right, which is thematically beautiful, because we all have to survive together on Mars. We can't be fighting each other. We all have to leave, even if we win, everybody has to feel good.
Right.
Or else we're going to die.
What I would say is there are medium weight Euros that don't need to be this baroque and this complex that could use a similar scheme.
Yeah.
Whereby there is player interaction, but the player interaction is largely positive. It's like, I want to do what you did. I can do that. You haven't blocked me. I can do it, but in doing so, I'm giving you an added benefit.
Yeah.
I think that is something that I don't see enough of. I don't see a lot of at all, and could be a really, really interesting trend going forward if people were to start to build games that way. What do you think?
I mean, 100% absolutely yes, even though the elegance of this, although I think when we get down to how we feel about the game on first blush, I think it'll really reflect in those reviews. But I will say that these mechanisms, these aspects of the game are fascinating. It's what brought us all to the table. It's why we played it now however many times since just having it underhand.
So before we get into our thoughts, I just want to say one thing that I had sort of an epiphany about Vital Lacerda games while playing this. Outside of the thought of just this, realizing that he's more interested in the positive experience than the negative. But
I still want to correct you on the pronunciation, but I'm not going to do that.
Vital Lacerda.
Vital
Lacerda. Okay. We all love Vital Lacerda.
Yeah.
All of us. Many of us consider him our favorite designer. Many. I'd say probably like half the people in our game group.
And let's be clear, when you and I debated Uwe Rosenberg versus that, we had to basically flip a coin because we both would probably pick Lacerda.
We very rarely play Vital Lacerda games at our game nights. They rarely come out. They come out less than older games like Age of Steam. They rarely hit the table. When was the last time Galler's hit the table? When was the last time Vinos hit the table? When was the last time Kanban hit the table? Like, these are games we all would say are 9s or 10s, but they almost never hit the table. And I think that is a problem with his designs. Not that it's a problem, but it's a problem for our group, because I think for you and I as the game teachers,
yes,
to remember the intricacies of these games before they are played would take 30 minutes unless you played it in the last couple months.
It requires a review.
You have to go back. And I think that holds us back from getting it to the table. I would love to just throw Gallerus on the table, but I can't just throw it on the table if I haven't played it in 6 months, because I have to read the rule book again. Because
I also think that you need 3 other players that are, okay, I'm gonna get the seatbelts on and I'm gonna strap in.
We have those, though. I don't think that's the problem. For me, honestly, I was just thinking, why? Like, I was sitting there going, like, why don't we play Lisboa more? Why don't we play? And I was thinking, going, why won't we play this more? Because I know we won't. I know in a month it will sit on a shelf for a year. And I really think it's because of me as the teacher of these games, or you, the people who actually are the ones, because it's extra work for us that games like Concordia or Great Western Trail, or even heavier games like Tricarion or things, they just, for some reason, the intricacies, the baroqueness of the rules are really hard to remember, and you just have to read the whole rule book again to be able to play it. And I think that holds me back from playing more games.
I agree. I think that segues right into talking about our impressions of the game and what we're talking about. I will say this. I will say that for our next 8x8 challenge, I think Vital Lacerda game is a must.
Totally.
Is a must. So, where do we fall on this, knowing that we are Vital super fans and all of that? Given all of that, where do we fall? I'm going to start with Alfred. Alfred, you had one play, and it was fraught. It was fraught is probably the
went into endgame scoring, and Alfred had 0 points. I'm not attacking you. No, I'm just saying that's interesting board state.
I was playing a different game. I was exploring the space, all those kind of things that we do. I will say, as been stated on the very first episode of this podcast, my favorite game of all time is the Gallerist. Still stands, even though I do play it so rarely.
Yeah.
This game isn't quite as elegant, I feel, as that. Mm-hmm. I feel like this game, the heaviness got in the way a little bit for me, and I really do feel like there was things I learned and things I really enjoyed in through the gaming. As these games often are the case, it was a learning game, but there was some certain determinism that happened in terms of like what was going on the evolution of the board state, of the kind of bringing out buildings that I was playing a little differently. I really wanted to explore the technology. I wanted to do the thing, and I just didn't grok it. And it's not just about not grokking it. It's just about the game itself had a little bit of an obfuscation for me that was a little bit off-putting. And I really enjoyed this game. Yeah, it was just a little bit difficult to see into. And I really don't blame the game itself. I mean, it was very clearly stated. It's very much Lacerda in that way. It wasn't a sweet spot. And I really enjoyed it. I will play again happily.
Yeah.
I'm sure I will do better.
I think that
next
feeling
time
goes away if you had the time to play it more. I think on the 4th or 5th play of this, I think that.
So I will just also say that there was a certain thing about the blueprints themselves where the understanding of the intricacies of how important they were as well, where the different executive actions that are unlocked, like I just kind of blundered into a certain path. And then once I was kind of working that path, it didn't unlock a lot of these other bonuses and kind of, so there's like a certain learning that this seems a little bit more like Terraforming Mars. This seems a little bit more like those kind of card games or like an Agricola, those style of heavy Euros where knowing the cards, knowing what's coming really makes it so you can play a game. And I just didn't do that. I just didn't have that. And it wasn't something explicitly as important in the game working in, like learning the rules didn't show as much of that.
Is this game to some degree like snowboarding? When I talk to people about snowboarding,
moving on.
When I talk to people about snowboarding, they're always like, you snowboard? I'm like, I'm horrible at it, but yes, I have snowboard a little bit. And like, I really want to snowboard. And I say, okay, but here's the thing. Your first day is a non-negotiable bad time. It is tough.
Mm-hmm.
It is tough. You are going to be battered and bruised. No matter how good you are at it, you're going to get your butt handed to you several times. You're going to be sore as heck. After that, the learning curve for it, you get better faster than you do at skiing, and you can quickly get to a good place.
Yeah.
But it is a hard start.
Yeah.
For people, even people that like Vidal Lacerda games, this is a hard start. This is to read the rules and be able to understand and teach the game is tough. The videos that are out there right now are not really amazing. They're not telling me, oh no, that's how to teach the game, because I don't think there is a super clear path as to an easy way to teach the game, because I don't think there's no way the best teacher in the world can't make this an easy teach. But beyond that, once you know the basics of even how to play it, your first few plays, you are struggling to remember how to play it and to play it at the most basic level, and the discoveries of how to play it better are coming, but they're slow to come. So it takes a few plays to even get up to speed. I guess what the question is there a point at which a game where the squeeze is so hard that no amount of juice is going to be worth it when you get down there? I think that's true for some games. I don't think it's true for this game, but I do think that
you can't believe it's true for this game if you also think 1862 is worth it.
Yeah, no, I exactly. I'm in. Listen, I'm a card carrying cult member. There's no question about it. That's where I am on it. But it is, this game does test this to some degree. Yep. It is the hardest Vital Lacerda game that he has ever created, and because of that, I just want to say that for me, it is that hard lime. You know, you get the lime in the bag, and you're like, oh my god, this thing won't even squeeze. Now those limes tend to have almost no juice, right? Mm-hmm. This thing is a gusher. Once you get into it, I think that this is giving and giving and giving. And now with 2.5 plays under my belt, I'm just starting out.
Yeah,
just starting out.
Yeah.
But I'm already reaching that point at that play 2.5 where I'm like, okay, no, there's a whole world in here, and it's the game other than 1862, just because I'm playing it on Tuesday, that I am most looking forward to playing.
Yeah, now you're in my head, man. Now I'm second, triple, quadruple guessing myself. Vital Lacerda games.
Vital
Lacerda games, VT games.
Dodolis, will you please correct him?
Vital Lacerda games make me wish I owned less games.
Yeah, I know
because I honestly feel like, and this is actually something that we'll talk about in Trends of the Year. I think we are, as a group, because we have a podcast now, because there is a certain need to churn out episodes and review new games. I think we are putting a high. I think we are liking games more that give off more juice with less squeeze. And I think we are starting. I think, and this may be controversial. I think you guys are off on Maracaibo because I just think it needs more plays to really. I think the swinginess and the randomness you're feeling is just lack of experience in the game. And as somebody who's played it now solo 7 or 8 times, I honestly just feel like, and I think On Mars could have that thing too. Or it's just like, I don't know, this feels crazy, but I don't know if we played less games, if we had a game group that played the same game 8 times in a row. I think there's deep strategies here that we might be overlooking after even 2 or 3 games on a lot of games this year, because it requires a lot of work, and we got to move on to the next game to review.
And let's be honest too, we're on the heavier end of things as a podcast, but now we're starting to be a voice for the hobby in some ways. Like, at least I see the people Thank goodness for the people in the Discord. Thank goodness for the people in the Facebook group and all the diversity of interests that they're bringing to the table. This game will register different for them, and most of them probably have backed this game. Most of them probably are involved in this game, invested in this game, and I think this is a really important. If this is going to be as bought as it seems online, I think this could be a really important game for the hobby.
Yeah,
Of heaviness.
I've played Maracaibo 5 times.
Mm-hmm.
At what point do I need to play it for it to turn the corner for me? There's a reason that people do 10 by 10 challenges. There's a reason we do 8 by 8 challenges, because it is a challenge to play a single game.
No, I know.
5, 8, 10 times. If it hasn't rung my bell on the 5th play, I feel like that is a mark against. That is a difficult thing to
I can't disagree with that.
To get past. I don't think On Mars is that. I will say that the first play of On Mars is that first day of snowboarding. I loved my first day of snowboarding. I hated my first day of snowboarding, but I loved it. It was brutal and painful, and it made my brain melt. But at the end of it, I couldn't wait to get back on the mountain. I couldn't wait to get back to it. And and with each play, I'm feeling that more and more about this game.
I think I can't really say how much I like this game right now. Much like, because I think it requires more. I really enjoyed it. I will say this: I didn't spend my weekend thinking about it the way other games do, where I played it and I'm just like, oh my god, now I'm reading the strategy things on BGG, and now I'm watching videos, and now I'm reading the rules again, and now it didn't. I'm not freaking out to play it again. If it came, I'm very excited to play it again, but I'm not dreaming of it. And it's not doing that thing where I'm just like, it's consuming me.
Wow, because I'm the opposite. I really have. I think because I played the one game and then I watched the other game played.
Yeah.
And I saw that two radically different. My strategy for winning the first game and your strategy for winning the second game were radically different.
Yeah.
We were focusing on completely opposite elements of things, and it felt very thematic that you won because you did something that really improved the colony in a different way than what I did, which was really interesting.
Yeah.
I guess what I would propose in the midst of that is, and partially because I was just exploring the space, but I don't know how many strategies there are to really viably win. I think it's awesome that those two were really radically different. I'm sure there's tons of extra, but there's something about the points that you both scored that were really in zone. And I'm just curious, when we get to 4 players, 5 players, how many of those people are going to be left out or king making? I did feel a little bit of that. Okay, 4 players. And so just, it's one of those things where I think there's probably like one person's going to have the pole position per game, and we're all going to be playing against that person in the early game, and then that'll evolve. But I'm curious about player 3 and 4. I mean, being the player 3 who kind of set things up a little bit, teed things up, didn't really feel like necessarily I ever had a chance, which is totally fine. But I really enjoyed exploring the space. But I do wonder if this game, in its cooperativeness, is going to be a little bit different than that.
Were you when you say third player, do you mean you were the third in the initial turn order? Is that what you're saying?
No, I meant more like I just felt like I never.
Oh, like
the kind of the outlier.
Yeah, well, this is definitely a game. If you have not played it before and other people have, you're just going to get.
I just wonder if there's any
trolloped.
I don't know what that. I don't know what I was going for there. Trounced.
Yeah.
Trounced.
I just wonder if there's
walloped or trounced.
I combined them and went trolloped, which is like a
trollop is kind
Victorian prostitute or something. I don't really know where I was going with that.
It is,
but
yes.
okay.
Yes.
I do think that there is probably not room, I want to be proven wrong. There's probably not room for a third player to rise up and to suddenly take things. I'm curious.
Not in the first play, you're going to get wenched.
Yeah.
Let's just say that. There's no question about it.
You're going to get bottom hoed in this game.
There is
really quickly if you.
There is no.
It's a strange podcast.
I mean, just totally courtesaned. Really, there's no. No other option.
I mean, we geisha Alfred pretty bad.
Folks.
That is on Mars.
That is On Mars. I unreservedly recommend it. I do.
I love it. I just wonder, and this is, I guess, a meta thing about our podcast right now. I wonder what service we're offering people in reviewing a 4.48 weight game that needs 7 or 8 plays to even understand after we've played it 2 to 3 times. That's all. I don't know what we can tell you our impressions after 2 to 3 times, but I cannot call this a review.
I totally agree to some degree, but at the other on the other side of it, there are we've played a ton of games, so we have a lot of experience there. I believe that with a lot of experience, our meter, our needle is calibrated in such a way that we get a beat on games faster than a lot of people.
I think this is an important game. Just that cooperative, competitive style that it represents, I think, is a refreshing blast of.
And a new VTOL game makes me want to play all the old VTOL. I mean, I'm just sitting here going like, what, man, we did not give Lisboa a fair shake. I want more plays of that. Yeah. I loved Lisboa. We don't play we should play Galler's 5 times a year. Yeah. We should be, we should play Kanban. Well, the new editions of Kanban's coming. I love Kanban.
I love Kanban.
Kanban's amazing.
I will say I've played Kanban more in the last 2 years than I played any of the other.
I haven't played it once in 2 years, at least.
It was super fun when we last got
Vinos.
Yeah, that was really fun.
Vinos is incredible. Why don't we play that all? I mean, it's just like, almost like would rather VTOL's next game just be a couple years without a new game, so I can just keep playing. I just feel like
well, that's what the Kanban expansion kind of represents.
Maybe,
right?
yeah. Like I wish I had more time to play his games because they don't come to the table enough.
The 8x8 challenge. Well, let's do that.
Yeah, fair enough.